Well, welcome back to Coast. George Norrie with you, L.A. Marzulli with us. Welcome back, L.A.
Hey, great to be here, George.
Tell me about your interest in crop circles.
Years ago, I attended a lecture someplace in Los Angeles, I forget where, and that was my first introduction to crop circles. So we're looking at circa 1990, somewhere in there. And I was just blown away by what I was looking at. And I didn't know what I was looking at. It was very complex. And at this particular time, I really hadn't started the deep dive, which has resulted in 13 books and 25 films. I was just researching, just looking at all things strange, the phenomena, UFOs, and obviously crop circles seem to be a part of it. So this goes back for me, certainly late 80s, early 90s. And this became crop circles exposing the secret language of the dragon. I just want to tip my hand immediately to Jeff Wilson, who allowed us to use the drone footage that he took and many of the still pictures that he took of the crop circle in Chillicothe, Ohio. I'm getting way ahead of myself here, but Jeff's photograph took it out of the realm of, just hoaxers and, well, somebody's making these things, into something that was absolutely profound. And we were thinking about actually calling this film Convergence, because what it does, it seems to link what's happening in modernity with these phenomenal, intricate crop circles back to ancient megalithic sites that we see all over the globe.
How long have crop circles been popping up?
Well, the name originated, I think, back in the 80s again, that people started calling them crop circles. And they were just very simple circles in a field of rapeseed or wheat or rye or whatever. The typical scenario, not unlike the cattle mutilations. A farmer goes to bed, looks at his field before he does that, checks everything. It's fine. Next morning he comes out, there's a crop circle there. It's like, wait a minute. And there's no footprints into the field. Now, you can access the field, most of the fields. There's like a pathway where the tractor goes. So these tractor lines go the full length of the field, and they're about maybe 30 feet apart, something like that. So there are two ruts in the field, which the wheels sit in, so you're not ruining the crop. Crop's all around you. Then you go to the end of the field, you come up to the next one. So farmers can spray chemicals, fertilize, whatever they want to do. So the farmers immediately noticed that, wait a minute, there's no access here. Granted, people could walk up the ruts, the wheel ruts, let's call them that, but then there's no access to the circle. They seem to be like appearing out of nowhere. And so this made national news, international news. Most of this stuff started appearing over in the UK, around the Wiltshire area. Isn't that funny? It's actually not funny at all, because it points back to the ancient megalithic sites of Stonehenge and Silbury Hill and the dolmens and all this other stuff. So in my opinion, there's a connection, definitely a connection.
What the scenarios we've heard about crop formations include that they could be of alien origin, they could be coming from the inner earth, some entities are doing that, or it's the planet, the Gaia theory, that the planet is alive, it's an organism, and it is communicating with us with crop formations. Of those theories, which one do you think is the most palatable?
Well, I would immediately dismiss the Gaia theory. I think that's wishful thinking, but I don't see any evidence of that for that at all, especially when there's a crop circle museum over near the Wiltshire area, which we visited, and they have several videos of light orbs. They actually show one in the film, but orbs appearing over the field and instantaneously making the crop circles. Now, some people say they're hoaxes. I get that. But there's several of them in the museum. So there's more than one. People have seen them. Eyewitnesses have seen them. So they're like orbs, and all of a sudden the orbs appear, and directly underneath them, there's this formation that unfolds. And there are hoaxes. I mean, I totally get that. But we'll get into the reason why this film was important and why the work of Jeff Wilson is so key to our film, because it shows that, wait a second, this could not have been made by Doug and Dave with stock stompers, at 2 o'clock in the morning pressing down the field. It's a whole different deal.
And they have done that in the past, but it's not easy to do, is it?
Well, I mean, if you're in a field of wheat, let's say, or rapeseed or whatever, and it's a couple of feet high, you can walk into that field again, and you can do all this mathematically. You can sit there, if you know geometry, you do your math, you draw this thing out, and then you sit there and go, you got walkie-talkies, and you're going, hey, Bob, let's roll 80 feet out of the tape measure, walk out 80 feet in the field, I'll put a stake here, make your first circle. It's done. I mean, I get that. And that's exactly how Doug and Dave and other hoaxsters make their fake crop circles. And we're not dismissing that. It's unfortunate that people are doing that, because what it does is it muddies up the waters. It obfuscates people from learning the truth about these things. And that's why going back into the crop circle that appeared in Ohio, specifically Chillicothe, it's off the charts, because you can't do that. So there are hoaxes. Well, we certainly admit that. But the evidence, in my opinion, shows that, going back to your question, which one is doing it, I think that these are interdimensional entities which move about with impunity over our skies. And this is why the whole phenomena is related. When you go from crop circles to cattle mutilations to abductions, in my opinion, it's all by the same guys. And the crop circle shows us that they can do whatever they want to do, just like the cattle mutilations. They can come in, they can take your prized bull, and you'll find that thing all cut up in the morning. There's nothing you can do about it. Yeah. Not a blessed thing you can do about it. The farmer can stand out there with a shotgun, all he wants to do, all night long. But at some point, when he turns his head, and these things can manifest in like less than a minute, bam, you've got a complex crop circle in your field. So whoever is doing it does so with impunity. They come and go as they please. And we call it, that's why the subtitle, Exposing the Secret Language of the Dragon, because the secret language of the dragon, in my opinion, is mathematics. And we see this not only stated, and this is the link, not only stated in the crop circle phenomena, George, but it goes back into the ancient megalithic sites that we see, where mathematics are embedded in these ancient sites, like Stonehenge, like what we see in Avebury, like the standing stones that we see all over the world, like Menga in Spain, like Karnak, France, and, of course, Ohio, the octagon mound, the circle mound, the knowledge of the 18-and-a-half-year lunar cycle. It's all connected. And mathematics, in my opinion, seems to be that universal language.
What is the dragon? Tell us about that part, L.A.
Basically, it's another name for the fallen watcher angel, or the fallen cherub, Satan. And when I use these terms, some people have such a if I say that word, immediately the hackles go up. Oh, he's talking about Christian mythos. Well, what if it's not mythos? What if it's actually real? What if that the biblical prophetic narrative is actually the true narrative? What if there's a thread of prophecy from Genesis to Revelation, which some of it has been actually fulfilled in our time? What if there's someone outside space-time as we know it, calling out the end from the beginning and the beginning from the end, and does so with great specificity? What if in those pages it tells us exactly what is happening in the end times right now, right this second? It tells us, and it spells it out once again, paint by numbers. Here it is. This is what's going to happen. So, the dragon, we are at war. We are in this heavenly war. And let me just say something, circling back to the question, is it interdimensional or extraplanetary? So we know, and when I was at several UFO conventions over the years, and my first foray to the audience is, before I, even get into my presentation, how many of you think it's okay to abduct and implant a 5-year-old boy? Anybody in the room? Is it okay to abduct a 5-year-old boy, take him out of his room, and put an implant? Does anybody in this room think that that's a good thing? And not a hand goes up, George, ever.
No.
Not one hand goes up ever. And there's a reason for it, because everyone knows it's wrong. Instinctively, viscerally, we know that you can't be doing that. So with that in mind, how do we jump from there to the Space Brothers? It's unbelievable. It's like pretzel logic. So we know it's not cool to be doing this, or taking the farmer's cow and carving it up and then blowing it back in the field. Why not just dump it, in a lake someplace or the ocean? I mean, if you've got the technology to do all this, you can just fly in a matter of minutes to an ocean, drop the cow in. But no, they drop it right back into the farmer's field. So in my opinion, these are interdimensional entities that are coming through. And frankly, and you know where I'm at with this thing, we don't know where we are or what this thing is. We really don't. What I mean, this thing, the universe, we have no idea. So Fermi's paradox they said, if life is just teeming out there in the universe, if the universe is just teeming with life, where the heck are they? Why don't they just show up and go, hi, we've been watching you guys we don't get that. We get this cloak and dagger, cat and mouse, in my opinion, deliberate deception. And Jacques Vallée, Messengers of Deception, why does he title his book that way? He realizes that something is going on here, and it ties right back into Fermi's paradox. I just believe these are interdimensional entities that goes back into the dragon. It's all connected.
L.A., there's a sophistication behind these crop formations and crop circles. What's the message, do you believe, that might be behind these things?
It's the cat and mouse game. It's always the same thing. It's to lure us in. It's to say, once again, we can do this. We are so above you. You're like ants to us, essentially. We come and go as we please. We can create these circles, and you can't stop us.
Who was the late David Flynn, and what did he do?
He and Richard Hoagland spent time together talking about Sidonia, the face on Mars. And David Flynn just blew everybody out of the water with his work on Roswell and the connectivity between what's called as the crabwood crop circle. David's brother had this logo of a gray alien holding a disc. Now, this is way, way back there. This is decades ago, okay? And all of a sudden, in England, this circle appears, this very complex crop circle appears, and there's the gray holding the disc. And David Flynn interpreted that because there's certain lines in the disc, and it all corresponds to 1947. And when you start adding up, and this is David's work, which is just incredible, you wind up in Roswell, New Mexico. When you actually take the mileage that's embedded in the code in the crop circle and extend that, you're in Roswell, New Mexico. And so it's, in my opinion, it was certainly not an accident that this happened. And David, his brother Mark, it was his company logo. And then we see it in the crabwood circle. It's mind-boggling.
Since you've been doing this, have the crop formations diminished or have they increased?
Well, they continue, but there's still a lot of hoaxes, and that's what's problematic. We were doing the Nephilim Mounds conference in Ohio, in Newark, Ohio, and we got word that there was this crop circle that appeared in a field of standing corn that was 8 feet tall.
Wow.
And the reason why this is so important is because you can't make a crop circle in a field of corn that's 8 feet tall. It's impossible. You can't get your tape measure out and go 100 feet and start doing circles. The corn was laid down perfectly. It was woven together. It wasn't broken. It was bent. The formations are called dragon heads. Right across the creek from where the formation took place are what I call the Nephilim Mounds, the Chillicothe Mounds. And once again, we see the same thing that happens in the UK, Silbury Hill, huge crop circles, megalithic sites, crop circles all around them. And then over here in America, we have this crop circle, dragon heads. And it's the second largest crop circle because of the amount of circles, but it was also very, very large, incredibly large.
One of your DVDs, Disclosure, The Coming Great Deception. How do crop formations fit into that possibility?
Well, once again, we see that it's a sign. You think of M. Night Shyamalan's movie Signs. I mean, and it was, I watched the flick. It was great. And a lot in it, I agree with him. And look, what's happening this week in the halls of our government? They're talking about UFOs. They're talking about, where's this money going to go? How are we going to allocate it? Is there a threat? Do these entities move with impunity? Well, George, I believe the shadow government, whatever they are, have known about this since the days of Eisenhower. He goes to Holloman, and there's some sort of a quid pro quo thing that happens. The shadow government knows about all of this. I mean, and what it does is it bolsters Bob Lazar and George Knapp. I mean, Coast regulars. It tells us exactly what's going on. They've had the craft. There was a quid pro quo. So this whole thing is just a ruse, but here's the point of the Great Deception. When they really show up, and I just want to read something from John D'Souza's book. I've been reading this a lot, or using it a lot, because he gets it. Once the black swans arrive, I quote from John D'Souza's book, once the black swans arrive, once we awaken to numerous mile-long shadows cast by these ancient ships hanging over our major cities, soundless, motionless, maddening, it will be too late. He gets it. He totally gets it.
He gets
it's
it.
coming. And George, I've been warning about this for decades, because when that happens, the entire planet comes to a halt. Everything stops, and we all look at, we're not alone. And that will be the great deception. Men faint from fear. This is prophecy, George. Men faint from fear from what is coming upon the earth. The dragon comes with all signs and lying wonders. I mean, it's like right there, right in the biblical prophetic narrative. So men faint from fear from what is coming upon the earth. It'll be like the days of Noah. You put that together, and you got to do some research on it. But the days of Noah are the Nephilim. And then Daniel 2, their seed will mingle with the seed of men. Here we are. Faint from fear from what is coming. It could be Planet X, but I don't think so. What's manifesting in ways that we've never seen is the whole UFO phenomena. And now, I remember Luis Elizondo on 60 Minutes, and the interviewer goes, well, what do you think about the UFO phenomena, Mr. Elizondo? But he called it UAP. And Elizondo just shoots right back. Bully for him, and he goes, doesn't matter what I think. Your government is telling you that UAPs are real. And the interviewer was taken aback by that, but it's true. So we're in a whole different deal. And I think that some sort of a revealing, the late David Flynn, circling back to David, he believed, as I do, that there was going to be some sort of a nuclear event on the planet, and that's when they would show up. And interestingly enough, what are we reading about almost daily?
All nukes, LA. So back to this incredible great deception, which you call the Luciferian endgame.
Mm-hmm.
Is this exactly what the Bible has talked about in end times prophecy?
Not because I'm some great theologian. It's like I was moved over from a lifelong pursuit of music and a musical career into this research, into what I'm doing now. And I think where it's led me is down a very deep rabbit hole. I mean, I stand on the shoulder of people like Dr. I.D.E. Thomas, who wrote the groundbreaking book, The Omega Conspiracy, who was the first person that I was aware of to open up the pages of Scripture and talking about the Nephilim. It's all Gary Stearman, and I know he's been on Coast before. Gary did this lecture in Ohio at that Nephilim Mounds conference, right where that crop circle appeared in Chillicothe. And Gary's title it was all about the seed. It's all about the seed, the offspring. And Gary illuminated not only to the people that were there, but to myself and Russ Dizdar, what the impact, the importance of a Genesis 3:15 narrative really was about. That was an eye-opener for me. That changed everything, because I knew Genesis 6. I knew about the Nephilim, but I wasn't aware of Genesis 3:15. I had read it, but I didn't put the two together. And all of a sudden, that becomes just paramount in the whole eschatological train of thinking, the whole end time scenario. It's all about the seed. What's happening with the abduction phenomena? I mean, there it is. Their seed will mingle with the seed of men, but they will not cleave to them. That's found in Daniel chapter 2. You can turn there and read it for yourself. Written 2,500 years ago, telling us exactly with great specificity what will happen at the last days, in the latter days. And that's where we are. Their seed is mingling with the seed of men, but there's no marriage contract. There was a marriage contract in the Genesis 6 narrative with the Nephilim. They took wives, plural, of whomever they wished, went into them, and this hybrid entity. Well, George, we've had accounts of hybrid. I'll just tell you one. We're actually doing a film called Supernatural Confrontations, where these people come on the record. This guy's in Norway. It's last summer. It's a beautiful June day. He and his wife were just shopping in the vegetable market. There's nobody else in the aisle. He looks up. He sees this woman who's glaring at him with these strange clothes. And she's like at the other end of the aisle, maybe 30, 40 feet away. She slithers down the aisle. What I mean, she's standing erect, but he doesn't see her feet move. She slithers down the aisle. And at this point, she's glaring at him with unmitigated hate. And he's going, what is going on? His wife is ducked down behind one of the vegetable stands. She's wearing strange clothes. Before he can do anything, she lifts up her dress, and she's not wearing any underwear. He turns his face away, and then he begins to rebuke it in the name of, all of a sudden he realizes, wait, I know what this is. Rebuke first, ask questions later. And he rebukes it out loud in the name of Jesus. George, this is his testimony. Instantly, Instantly, bam, the entity is all the way back at the aisle, at the end of the aisle, and the next instant she's gone. Now, obviously, you don't see that every day, but we've had more and more reports coming from eyewitnesses who come on the show and talk about these unbelievable occurrences, which can only be, in my opinion, modern day Nephilim. They're hybrids. Dr. David Jacobs' book, Walking Amongst Us, he's right. We know that, first of all, hats off to Lucy Pringle. She's absolutely amazing. And before the days of drones, Lucy's in a small hand glider, basically, an ultralight flying around and photographing these things. And without her, that wouldn't have been done. So, we owe her a great round of applause and lots of kudos. People who go into these things, into the circles, report all sorts of strange activity. It's just like Fox News telling us that some people who are in the proximity of UFOs suffer brain anomalies, brain cancer, brain tumors, things like this. We have a person who was a lifelong abductee on the ship, and she came down with a brain tumor. Now, I had nothing to do with this in the sense that it's not me that did it, but we prayed over her, and she went and got another MRI, and the thing was gone.
Wow.
And yeah, and she's obviously in tears about this, and the doctors are utterly baffled because they saw it. They knew it was there, and they were afraid that something would trigger it, and the thing would hemorrhage, and she would die. Well, it's not there. They did the MRI, and they're baffled. So we know that there's a power out there that's greater than the nefarious entities that are happening. But you've got to be careful when you enter anything like this because of the electromagnetic field. We know that the crop is bent. It's not broken. It's laid down. We know that the seeds germinate much quicker in a real crop circle than normal seeds. That's been scientifically proven. So there's lots of other things that are happening. Yes, sacred geometry. They call it sacred geometry, but in my opinion, it's the language of the dragon. They call it sacred geometry because they fail, in my opinion, once again, to realize who the author of it is. So when you look at, let's say, what I believe is the most astounding archaeological discovery of the 21st century, and of course I'm speaking of America's Stonehenge in New Hampshire, when you go from the center of their site out to the summer solstice standing stone on Google Earth, you wind up, and you just extend that line. And this is the work of Kelsey Stone, who was a college student a number of years ago. He had no idea where that line was going to take him. He was just fooling around on Google Earth. He winds up intersecting both trilithons at Stonehenge, England. And that you cannot do unless you know trigonometry, the curvature of the Earth, and all sorts of other stuff. Same thing with the Circle Mound. And Fritz Zimmerman, showed the advanced trigonometry embedded in the mounds. And this is like, some people say it's a racist statement. It's not meant to be. But if Native Americans don't know trigonometry, if they don't know geometry, then they don't know geometry. It's okay. Europeans didn't know the 18-and-a-half-year lunar cycle for centuries. I'm Italian. The Italians did not invent the airplane. The Wright brothers did. So I'm not being a racist if I say, hey, we were messing around with it too. Okay, but the Wright brothers got it first. So what's the truth? If there's no deer hide, if there's nothing in the historical record, nothing in the oral tradition showing that Native Americans knew about an 18-and-a-half-year metonic cycle, and by the way, that happens in 2025 at the Octagon Mound when the lunar standstill happens. I hope to be there and see that. So it's sacred geometry. That's just sort of came about in New Age circles. It's the language of the dragon, and it's global. It's absolutely global. There is this hidden history, which has been deliberately obfuscated from the peoples of the world. It's all around us. It's out in California. It's in New Hampshire. It's at Chaco Canyon. It's everywhere. But what's the source of it? Where's the source? And you go to any shaman, you go to Hunbat's men, who when he was alive, and he'll tell you exactly where it's coming from. They'll tell you exactly where it's coming from and what price you have to pay to gain the knowledge. So the first one, the genesis of the crop circles. Well, they go back to the 17th century, where they call it the mowing devil, where they came out in England, in the UK, and they discovered this field, and the people were freaked out. And so they said, well, the devil must have done it. And see, this is where we get and I understand that, the mowing devil, and some people sort of scoff at that. We actually show that in the film, that the Fibonacci sequence is used in the crop circles. And this is why we call it exposing the secret language of the dragon, because all this goes back into the ancient megalithic sites. In my opinion, it's no coincidence, Neil, that the crop circles are often found, specifically in the UK, by these ancient megalithic sites. And the same thing happened in Chillicothe. Why is that there? Why is there this connectivity? Why is there a convergence between what's happening in modernity and happened thousands of years ago? Because in my opinion, and I'm always looking for this unified theory, George, you know that. The whole basis of my research is they're not disjunct, they're not disconnected, they're all connected. So when you look at the abductions and the crop circles and the alien implants, it's all sourced back to the same group of people, the same entities, and it has a very nefarious, dark agenda. But the language is math. Their language is math, and that's how they send the signal. And that's why you talked, our previous caller talked about sacred geometry. That's why I brought up America's Stonehenge relation to Stonehenge, England. That's not a fluke. That is not a fluke. And yet mainstream archaeology, for the most part, won't even look at it. They just dismiss it as a coincidence because they realize you can't do that unless you know how to triangulate in the air. And America's Stonehenge is a 4,000-year-old site. So it makes no sense in their paradigm.
L.A., does any of this scare you?
What scares me, George, is the way the dragon and the enemy can use his forces to upset the apple cart.
And trick people.
Yeah, we've been under attack. But here's what I cling to, that greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. A verse I use, a scripture I use, that's how I fight back. And I also know that I'm guarded, that, he will not let me fall. My guardian will not sleep. He will not rest. And that's what I walk in. I walk in not in an egotistical way, but I walk in confidence that he's got, and I've seen it over and over and over again, he's got my life in the palm of his hands. So it's all good.
Pretty dramatic, L.A.
Thank you so much, George. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on and being able to speak.